Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, presented by Cattle, Season 4, Episode 34. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the Food Professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
We are live together in Montreal at the big SIAL Food Innovation Show. Sylvain, my friend, it is wonderful to be in person with you, as always.
It's our Super Bowl.
It is our Super Bowl. It's our third year.
Yeah.
We're back in Montreal, where that was my first experience with SIAL, just coming out of the... out of COVID, and I barely made it out of our... We got a beautiful studio here.
Yeah.
Shout out to the folks at SIAL.
Yeah.
They built us a beautiful... but it's for you, it's like a revolving door. Like, everybody sees you, and they just want to shake your hand and say, hi, you're so well known in the industry.
They run into a window.
Maybe we should put those bird things up in the windows.
It looks like a big aquarium, but people just stop to look at us. Yep. They don't even hear us, but they just look at us. And sometimes they take pictures.
Yeah, it's fun. Now, listen, we've been, we just, day one, we just started. We've already done a couple of interviews. Chuck Hughes, who's been on the show, Chef Chuck Hughes, just left.
Had quite a few good interviews.
Yeah, he just left, so we'll get to an episode with Chuck a little later in the season. For this episode, we had a fantastic interview with Marc Vaucher, who runs or is with Scale AI.
That's right.
And I didn't know much about Scale AI, but when he started talking about how that was where the Prime Minister did their announcement about, what was it, $2 billion plus more funding, the kind of light bulbs started going off. I guess my artificial and real intelligence started kind of clicking in.
From artificial non-intelligence to artificial intelligence.
Exactly. So that started kicking in for me, and now I understand more about what they do. But we understand a lot more after talking to him, so we'll get to that interview a little later. So let's talk about SIAL for a while. So we've talked about it in previous episodes. You're hosting a bunch of stuff. You're doing a bit of media. I'm doing an innovation panel tomorrow, which will just be a pile of fun. You know, you haven't been here that long. Any early first impressions of the show? We've met a few wonderful people. We've tasted some amazing beverages and some charcuterie, which was
this year people come to us and they bring us over to their kiosk. So we can so you can tell that the podcast is aging well. Within the SIAL community, which is nice. I mean, people, we're not actually looking for interviews anymore. They just come to us, which is great. But
the folks from Austria just dropped off a goodie bag for us. They've been on the podcast before. I mean, we've done a lot of interviews in and around. And by the way, for the listeners, we're going to do a couple of these interviews will be our full show, and then all summer we're going to record enough bonus episodes that we'll be
what's going on? I think people know we're not paid for this. They come by with food. Please eat. You cannot leave your fishbowl. Eat.
Well, listen. I drove here. I always drive here instead of fly here from Toronto because I got to bring a bunch of stuff back. The people here are so generous. Samples are amazing. Chuck gave me a bottle of his mustard coleslaw, which I just got to try.
You're a fanboy, aren't you?
I am a fanboy. I'm a big fan of Chuck. Even before whatever, I got a couple of his.
He's incredible.
Of his cookbooks. Great. You and I are having dinner at his restaurant tomorrow. Which is a tradition for us. We always go to Garde-Manger when we're in town together.
It takes 3 years to pay for it, but that's okay.
That's all right. The quality's there.
Yeah, exactly.
We love it. So anyway, first impressions. I mean, I haven't even been to the second floor yet.
I mean, overall, it's so I haven't really I did spend maybe a couple of hours on the floor talking to people, and I mean, there are a couple of themes that are coming up. We have to kind of come up with a product that is recession-proof. So, in other words,
food affordability, people know.
Absolutely. So that's top of mind for a lot of people anywhere around the world, really, not just in Canada. But
that's not a Canadian. To reinforce the things we've been saying.
And SIAL's global, and so this is certainly not something that is surprising to me. In terms of, you're always looking for the new flavors, and like I'm seeing cake that are now flavored in all sorts of different things. And so I think there's some daring going on. I think a lot of people are paying attention to the millennials and the younger generations because, I mean, that's that number you want to aim for, right? Because they're looking at food very differently. I mean, millennials just got a reality check with higher interest rates, so they're just pulling back right now, but they're going to come back. Like, we're going to talk again about sustainability. We're going to talk about all sorts of different things. And, 20 years ago was pumpkin spice. Now, what's the next flavor? What are some of the next things that are coming up? And so, actually, we're going to be interviewing this week a cake company, and you're gonna hear a lot of different flavors. You probably didn't even know.
Maxime from Michaud. I was looking through his brochure.
It's a 40-year-old company, and they're the biggest Christmas log manufacturer in Canada.
You know what I asked him? He popped by just to kind of say, hey, what do you want to talk about? Because we just sent him a quick note. And I said, I'm super interested in how you see innovation. Like you're a 40-year-old company. What's the next flavor? How do you determine the next flavor? What's the next big thing for you? So I'm also excited to get a bunch of samples because that was really good. Not that we invite people because we like their food.
If you go to their booth and they have samples, and those samples are pretty darn generous. I think their mandate is to fatten up people.
Their mandate is to make people happy, I would say.
Yes, of course.
I would say.
We're happy. Everyone's happy. It's SIAL.
Everybody's happy. And listen, you can't spell retail without talking AI, so that's why we thought we'd kick this episode off with first interview. Marc was our first interview of the show, actually, talking about AI, which is very appropriate, I think, because, it's something that we talk about. We probably could talk more about it, but I think the agricultural scene and he goes into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into the news. Let's start at the supply chain, this country's supply chain. We've got
what supply chain?
Well, we've got labor disruptions pending at the ports in Vancouver and on the rails. What are you hearing?
I just ran into Jean Gattuso, the former CEO of Lassonde. He was tasked by the government 2 years ago. If you remember, Michael, we talked about
a big report, the supply chain. That was a great report, actually.
Yeah, he was the chair of the co-chair, actually, of that task force, and I participated to that task force, and we were just talking about the report, and it was actually tabled more than a year ago, and nothing has happened. And to be honest, really what's going on right now is that people are wondering, okay, is the federal government taking logistics and supply chains seriously? I mean, the
government, now to be I don't know, fair or whatever, I noticed the minister stepped into the rail and submitted, he said, I don't think you guys are ready to take care of Canadians, so I'm going to put you to the there's a adjudication board. So
to assess the safety and security of a potential labor dispute.
Basically of what are the contingency plans to make sure people get what they need to get. And so that could, they're paying attention.
But look at the track record of the last 5 years. This could potentially be the third railway strike we experienced in Canada.
What's the answer? Do you think it should be...
wait a second.
All right.
Ports in BC, the port in Montreal, the St. Lawrence Seaway, all in the last 5 years. Like, if you're a business and you're dealing with this uncertainty, it's a killer. I mean, what do you do?
But surely we're not the only country. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the U.S.
I've been to the U.S. and I spoke about the supply chain in the U.S. And let me tell you, Americans are not impressed. They see Canada as an unreliable source because of these labor disputes.
And they've had their own labor disputes.
Oh, of course.
That feels like a little bit of projection to me. It's not like they're without disputes themselves. I mean, I track the U.S. pretty closely, and they're
but they can afford to screw up once in a while. We can't. I mean, we need the U.S. to do business, and frankly, we are a large country with no population density either.
Of course.
So we need to build a Kansas City. We need to build, basically deliberately build a Chicago and the hubs that they do have in the U.S. We just don't have that in Canada. We have to be deliberate about it. And right now, I mean, the Freeland budget that was tabled a few weeks ago, the budget, and I was talking to Jean Gattuso about this, $4.6 billion over 5 years. It's
nothing.
Peanuts.
It's nothing.
Peanuts. Yeah. And right now, ports in Canada are ranked the lowest, in the lowest tier around the world, and railways are a disaster. I mean,
they seem to work pretty well when you steal a car and want to get it offshore. I mean, they seem to be very efficient at doing that.
Today, Prime Minister Trudeau announced that we, as taxpayers, we were actually buying back the Quebec Bridge. Okay? This is the big news right now in Quebec. Where we are, if you listen to the news tonight, that's the big news. He was in Quebec today, buying back, The Quebec Bridge, a very well-known bridge around the world. It was actually the longest bridge in the world in iron when it was built more than 100 years ago. So it's an historical bridge. It was sold to CN many years ago. And right now, it's about to fall. So we don't take care of railways. We don't take care of infrastructure in Canada. We're forced to buy it back to take care of it and spend $40 million a year for the next 5 years.
Now, I've heard it said that one of the possible solutions to this infrastructure challenge is to, and this happened during the Mulroney government where he privatized actually a fair bit of CN, Air Canada, is to make these assets more interesting to the big pension funds, because the pension funds like to invest in these big infrastructure. Like if you talk about CPP, teachers or OMERS, they're buying ports in Holland. So is that part of the answer? How do we square this circle?
Well, if you can't make the issue political, and frankly, how do you make supply chains political? It's impossible. It's an obscure part of our world, really. People go to the grocery store, they think that food actually will magically appear on shelves. They don't see the logistics behind, so you can't politicize the issue. But perhaps, to your point, you can perhaps make the sector more visible to investors. And that's when you actually can move the needle on this issue. But until then, I actually don't think that we're really supply chain focused in Canada.
What do you think of the new bridge between Windsor and Detroit, the Gordie Howe Bridge? That's a private-public venture. I mean, that could be a model for what you're talking about,
right? Absolutely. That's an exciting project for sure. I mean, yesterday I had the pleasure to visit friends at Metro in Terrebonne. We spoke about it a few months ago on this podcast. They were opening up a new distribution center in Terrebonne, so I actually had a chance to visit it yesterday.
What'd you think?
A jewel. It's amazing. I was very impressed. They have lots of capacity to grow, and that center is designed to support 700 stores. And they actually did learn from some mistakes in Ontario when they actually bought AMP back in 2005. AMP had lots of land, and so they actually built up a distribution center in the Brampton area, I think, and they actually did some learning there to build that big kahuna in Terrebonne. And I mean, I got to tell you,
and that DC is exclusively for stores, right? Did they mention direct to consumer?
It's for frozen and fresh,
and it serves the Quebec area,
the Quebec market.
Yeah,
exactly. So fresh and frozen, both. The frozen is actually 120 feet tall, and you got these massive lifts. No humans. I mean, it's minus 28. Why would you want humans in there? You'd be miserable all day. And so when I was walking around with Yannick and Marie-Claude, the two people who were with me, I saw one human and a lot of boxes being moved around. It was pretty impressive, I thought, and state-of-the-art. Right next door is the Sobeys distribution center that was built, I think it was a decade or 15 years ago. I didn't visit that one, but if I walked in, I probably felt like it was 10, 15 years ago. Right. So things are moving fast. And what Metro is doing is it is working with suppliers to work on packaging, because it's all about they pallet things. They pallet all the time, but it has to be perfect for eyes and sensors to continue the work, so they move products around. If there's one mistake, it could lead to ruptures and waste and damage machinery.
Did they talk about, I don't know how technical they got, the RFID? Did they talk about RFID at all? Did that come out?
Yeah, it was all over. That's what they use. Yeah, they use RF technologies and FRD. It's incredible.
And for the listeners, they're little microchips. If you pick up a book at a library, if you go shop at Decathlon or wherever, there's little chips in all the product that they just have to wave a wand. They don't have to scan it. And so they're using that kind of technology.
And so what they're realizing is that a lot of their suppliers actually have packaging that just don't fit well with the technology that they have. But here's the thing with Metro. They're moving actually in lockstep with Sobeys and with Loblaws, and so everyone's doing the same. Loblaw is building a 1.2 million square feet distribution center in Newmarket right now.
Wow.
So they're all doing it. And frankly, in order to manage a deflationary market that we're about to see, because I actually do think things are going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. People out there are thinking, oh my God, grocers are printing money, they're gouging. That's not what we're seeing, of course.
No.
But it's going to get even tougher over the next several months. And so with AI, with ice cream, if you know exactly how much ice cream you're going to sell at store number 52 next week because of the weather, then...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's what the center is all about, right? You reduce waste as much as possible, and you increase efficiency. And the luxury of a distribution center like that, you can actually accommodate more SKUs. You can actually have more choices because you're not screwing up as much with products that won't sell. Okay, so that's the middle mile. We all know who the last mile leader is in this country. That's Amazon. But the middle mile battle is ongoing, which is great. So grocers, distributors understand that game. But up the food chain, you need a government to work on the supply chain. And that's the missing link.
Again, I'm going to give you a magic wand. What are the three things you would do? Would you make, like for CN, would you make it that they can't strike? Would you make them...
there's one simple solution.
What's the simple solution?
Make the food supply chain an essential service across the country. In BC, if you remember with the BC Ports situation last year, commodities weren't impacted because in BC, the food supply chain is an essential service. But everything else that wasn't moving. I think it should be across the country. That's it. That's the only thing you need to do. I'm a unionized employee myself. Okay, I recognize the right for people to strike. But when you're actually holding hostage farmers out there, okay, that are and they need railways in June to move product. If they don't have a railway that the quality of their product, people are thinking, well, once the labor dispute is done, they can catch up. Well, that's not how it works with wheat and barley.
Well, and in general, I was talking to one of my clients. Their estimation is for every day that they're on strike, that it's a week to 2 or 2 weeks to catch up.
Yeah.
And really, what we haven't talked about is one thing for the disruption to happen, but the disrupting part is already happening. It's been happening for 3 months. People are already putting stuff on trucks because they can't hope that the strikes or the interruptions don't happen. So the disruption's already happening. That's a point we like to make to government all the time.
Yeah.
That, when we're talking to government about this stuff, it's not disruptive when it happens. It's disruptive that it could happen, and we can't make the bet that it will or won't up until the 11th hour. So, anyway, it's very...
But the point I wanted to make is on quality. Let's say, for example, you're shipping your wheat 2 weeks later. It affects the grading. And it affects the amount of money that farmers will get back for their product. So they're not happy. And so even if you recognize the right to strike, and they do go on strike, it's going to cost farmers money. That's the problem.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that next week because I think that the ball's...
May 22nd, yeah.
Well,
unless there's a delay due to Minister O'Regan's request.
I think that's definitely going to get pushed out. It's hard to see that not, but who knows, right?
So it can happen on May 22nd or later.
Yep. Let's talk about other things in the news. So I don't know if you caught this in the Globe and Mail, but changes at Saputo. Where Lino Saputo is moving up and out, basically, and they're bringing in some professional management. What do you make of this? Just change in the company? We've talked tough times sometimes for some of the processors. What do you think about the Saputo?
You're in Ontario, so you kind of missed out on all the controversy around Saputo's and FC Montreal. They own the team. Lino Saputo actually acted a little bit like Stan Briner.
Really?
Yeah, he was in the news a lot. And it's not like Galen Weston in Ontario, but he was in the news a lot for the wrong reasons for a long time. Like he is seen as a person who's actually coaching and managing the club.
Really?
Yeah, and I think it didn't help their image. It really...
And what about Saputo's
actually
image?
for the last month or so, all the headlines related to Saputo was about soccer.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, so it wasn't great. So my guess is that they're just trying to kind of protect the family. Maybe I don't know. How do you read that?
Well, I didn't have that context to go by. Like, that's why I'm kind of curious, because I wouldn't say Saputo's off the radar screen in the rest
they
of
own
Canada.
the company, yeah.
But I mean, it just as a brand, I think of them more as a Quebecois brand, and they would have more prominence here. So I was just kind of take your temperature on.
I suspect that they just want some fresh air, some newness. They did that. I mean, some companies do that. Family-owned businesses will do that once in a while. Is it permanent? I doubt.
It's a big change when you move it out of the family, right?
Yeah, it may be a pause. I mean, Loblaw just
did it with Per.
Yeah.
Loblaws, if you're listening, once again, open invitation for
that's right.
Mr. Bank to join us on and to chat about what he thinks of us now.
That's right.
About the Canadians and Canadian grocery store. Let's take a break now and get to our interview with Marc from Scale AI right after we listen to this important message from our presenting sponsor, Cattle. Ever feel like the world of ratings and reviews needed a superhero? Well, enter Cattle, the caped crusader with Canada's largest, most diverse, and daily active consumer panels. That's right, Cattle is not your average podcast sponsor. They're like that cool friend who always knows the hottest trends. I mean, they are the voice of the consumer, after all. So why choose Cattle? Because Cattle excels in consumer insights from your consumer world, also blazing trails in the realm of ratings and reviews, pioneering the future landscape of user-generated content. Beyond valuable syndicated receipt data, they stand as unparalleled collector of reviews at scale, irrespective of category or price point, a testament to their impact, partnerships with giants like Walmart, Canadian Tire, and more. Visit AskCattle.com now for an exclusive The Food Professor podcast listener discount on your first review or research campaign today. That's AskCattle.com. Marc, welcome to the Food Professor podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for joining Sylvain and I. You are our first interview. Sylvain and I are here live at the SIAL Food Innovation Show. And what a way to start our interviews with Scale AI. You know, you can't say retail anymore without saying AI. So we're happy to have you here.
Exactly, yeah. Well, welcome, Marc.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm Senior Investment Director at Scale AI, and if you don't recall what Scale AI is, you can remind yourself the recent announcement from Justin Trudeau, $2.4 billion for AI.
$billion.
Yeah, recently, and it was in our offices. So
wow.
That's where it took place.
Now, so you are, as I understand it, a cluster of expertise, both solution providers and businesses who are trying to figure out AI. How do you describe what you do?
So Scale AI is an innovation cluster. At this point, we have funded 120 projects, and the total amount of project is $600 million of projects.
So 120, wow. So are these projects all Canadian? Or
all Canadian. So it's to improve the productivity of Canadian companies all across Canada. So we put in contact organizations that want to adopt AI and organizations that can provide AI services, support them, guide them throughout their AI journey.
Wow, that's incredible. And so are you getting more applicants coming in, or the 120 actually happened during the first cycle of funding?
So we are 5 years old. So during these 5 first years, we got those 120 projects, but the momentum is continuing to grow, and we have more and more projects being submitted to us, and we are going to fund. But besides the funding, we are really a player that is meant to empower AI, the Canadian economy, and guide companies throughout their journey to help them adopt AI as soon as possible. And there is no good time or good moment to start AI. Or yes, there is a good, it's now. Because at the end of the day, even if you think you're not big enough or enough digitally mature, in fact, you're already ready to do maybe some first steps towards your AI journey and transformation.
I'm on your site and I'm looking at your partners and members. So how does it work? I see Air Canada, Agripur, I see a lot, Couche-Tard, I see lots of members and partners. Are they funded? Are they funding? Do they have projects? How unpack that for us?
So Scale AI is a small organization. We have a federal funding from the federal government, and we use that funding to fund a portion of the projects with support on top of the guidance we provide. and we build the ecosystem by putting together big AI events. The next one being in September, called All In, and also by putting together in contact different players of that ecosystem and funding that. But we don't do ourselves the AI work. We have many examples in the agro world.
Yeah, talk to us about those.
Yeah. So one example I like very much is Semios, for example. So Semios is an ag tech startup based in BC that is helping farmers using sensors, provide them with great information to make the right decision in their crop. So when do I need to water, when I need to put pesticides, etc. And the question is, how do I predict what's happening where I don't have sensors? And smaller farmers, thanks to the AI solution they've put together, were able to have good prediction of micro variation of temperature, of weather in their crops, and taking better decision is should I prevent any frost? Should I water my plant, my crop? Should I put some pesticide? But with very targeted decisions, thanks to these predictions that AI made possible. You have other examples very different from that. For example, you have in the retail world. So Canadian Tire, for example, or Loblaw, they used AI to do some promo optimization. So what is a good price? When should I do a promo plan? What is the success of that promo plan? But also another example is interesting. That's planogram. So Canadian Tire is using AI to automate, help workers all across their 500 stores place the product in their shelves the right way. And
I interviewed the senior person at NVIDIA last week, and they were talking about retailers using a digital twin as opposed to, so they're setting up a complete store in virtual reality, in the metaverse with AI, and they call it a digital twin, and that's how they're figuring out their merchandising.
Right.
And shelf allotment. Is that a good example?
Yeah, exactly. A great example. Another great example is McCain, for example. So they use the AI to help their farmers know when to harvest the potatoes. Also AI to take good decision in the manufacturing process to reduce waste and maximize throughput. And at the end of the day, it's helping the farmers and also helping the overall McCain value chain using AI. And that was a major project of theirs. And here, Scale AI again, they challenge them also on, is your project realistic on that front? Given the $600 million of funding we provided, 600 million projects we saw, that seems to be a bit too ambitious, or this should be maybe
or maybe
finalized.
You should be more ambitious.
Yeah, or you should be more ambitious, exactly. But we know what's possible, what's not, thanks to this experience we've put together, and thanks to the ecosystem. We can tell companies, no, you're not too small to start AI, or not. You think you're not mature enough, but you can be. Maybe you have a small portion of your processes you could improve because you have good data there, and then you can improve your data structure or over time instead of thinking you need to have your data infrastructure all ready before starting your AI journey.
Interesting.
How do you qualify for Scale AI? Can you be a restaurant and qualify?
Yes, in fact, any company can be involved in a project with Scale AI, depending their process needs and their, let's say, the business needs. AI could apply in one field or another. The important thing is really for a company to take the AI transformation decision at the strategic level, so highest level in the company. It's not an IT decision, it's not a technology decision, it's a business decision. And then once you have taken that business decision, you need to involve the end users, so the operations, you need to involve the one that will be providing data, you need to involve the right AI partners, and you need to have the right level of data quality. And all of these, you're going to play that together. And you can start with a small scope to make that possible and involve people, start to learn, and then go and bigger and bigger, and at the same time transform digitally and improve your data structure.
If I applied to you today, how long would it be until I get funding? What's a typical cycle, approvals and reviews? How long does that take?
So for a company to get funding from Scale AI, it can take 3 months and a half for the fastest if the project is almost ready to go.
That's quick.
We are going to help them toward the last steps of the project structuring, and depending how long they need to take to get the partners together and refine their project. Because what we want them is not only to start a project quickly, but also to have the greatest chances of success. So having those pair of eyes from Scale AI on their project that is leveraging the 600 million project we've seen is also helping them. We don't have financial interest. We are funding that with it's a subsidy.
How do you measure success?
So success can be measured in different ways. First, revenue impacts, cost reduction, but also job creation, training. So we have all sorts of KPIs. We look also deep in the metrics. So how much things did I move with the same amount of resources? Did I do more with the same amount of resources? Did I use less resources to do the same thing? All of that is really where AI can help you. AI, in fact, can do...
But as your organization, how do you measure success? I get how you might measure the success of the projects, but when you and your team members say, did we achieve our objectives, how do you measure that? The number of grants you give, the money you give out,
of course, the number of projects we have, the total amount of project is an important KPI for us, but also how well the project did for the company. So those revenue impacts and cost reduction, job creation, etc., are KPIs very important for us to measure how active and successful those projects were.
Do you have any data showing us how much growth have you achieved helping the different businesses that you actually got involved with?
Let's say overall what we have measured is that we managed to bring $5 additional billion of value to the economy thanks to the project.
$5 billion.
Yeah, thanks to the project.
In the last 5 years.
Yeah, in the last 5 years with a 600 million project investment that was made. So great achievement. And often the question we have is also, but what AI can do for me as a company?
Yeah.
And
they're hearing things.
Yeah.
But they're wondering whether or not they're missing out.
Yeah, and the first thing they think about is ChatGPT and Copilot. And yes, that's useful. That's helping you build documents, get access to information, provide build content. But there are other elements we are forgetting. And in fact, surprisingly, these Gen AI solutions are the smallest portion of AI solutions we see in production in companies.
I see.
So there's two other traditional AI solutions we see more that are providing also great impacts, business impacts, are predictions. So how much sales I'm going to do in the next 10 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and prescriptions. So what decision should I take? When should I harvest my crop? And when should I harvest my potatoes in my crop? Yeah. So that's the kind also of things that can help AI can help you do as a company.
I'm from Ottawa. When I grew up, I came to Montreal a lot to watch baseball, the Expos. So it's wonderful to be back here in Montreal. So I'm going to ask you a baseball question.
Whoa.
He looks like a baseball guy.
You look like a baseball guy. What inning are we in terms of AI and business impact? Are we halfway through? Are we nowhere? Are we in the first inning? Are we in the 7th inning stretch? What do you think?
Or is there a rain delay?
That's an amazing question. Let's say what I can tell you. It's between 2000 and 2022. Our productivity decreased by 71% compared to the productivity in United States. So this shows how productivity is a super important, crucial element for our country. And AI and Canada is at the forefront of AI research, has been at the forefront of AI research, but lagging behind in terms of AI adoption. And the work we do at Scale AI is making that knowledge transfer to the companies to make sure...
Close that gap.
Bridge that gap, exactly, to make sure that AI do what they does best, is improve productivity for companies.
It's good. You still haven't answered my question.
I would say, I don't know, second inning.
All right.
Thanks to Scale AI.
Top of the second or bottom? Yeah, thanks to... And you just got some more funding, so maybe you went to the top of the second inning versus the bottom of the second inning?
Exactly.
And Canada's the home team, so...
That's right.
We're good. But when you look at your portfolio, how big is ag and food? Like, are you really committed to ag and food, or is this just one of many What's the percentage, I guess?
I would say asking. That the project, the AI project that touch ag and food can go up to, I would say, 20 to 30% of our project, I would say, because retail is a big thing for us, and retail has big impact on ag food.
And the adoption issue you raised, is that absolutely critical in ag and food as well?
Yes, it's very critical. I have another great example I like to mention is Ferme d'Hiver. It's a Quebec-based company that is the biggest vertical farm in strawberries. And they use AI to provide the right amount of light, the right amount of water to the crop. So it allows you to take much better decision, much more optimized decisions, and have much better visibility on what's coming.
Wow. Right. And so in farming, it's a big deal. And what about processing?
Processing is as well a big deal. We have Patate Dolbec, another example I like to mention. Yeah. They use the AI to automate to make sure that they can dispatch the potatoes regarding their size, their quality, and they use the AI to do that. So it's really a big thing. And when you know how to use AI and empower AI, that really can transform your business.
That's great.
Sylvain, have you been to the Couche-Tard Store of the Future at the McGill University?
Yep.
Because they combine machine vision with checkout, self-serve checkout, which is so important because retailers are struggling with everything from theft to efficiency. But have you ever tried it? You just drop a bunch of products on, it reads it.
It's incredible.
In seconds, it knows exactly what's on.
Yep.
Last couple of questions. What brings you here? What are you doing here at the SIAL show?
So I'm very glad to be at this great event. I'll be speaking in an hour or so with Jack Kleja from Ivadolab. And I'll be speaking about how AI can transform the ag food industry.
Yeah, I'm actually presenting on AI tomorrow, but our presentations are complementary.
Exactly. We'll take the focus from the company's point of view rather than the user point of view.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. So where can people go to get in touch with you? Are you a LinkedIn person and learn more about Scale AI?
I'm a LinkedIn person.
Okay.
I'm not called John Smith, so you'll find me right away on LinkedIn.
A little easier to find you. Yeah. So we'll put that in the show notes. And scaleai.com?
Scaleai.ca.
Scaleai.ca.
And so, to be clear, your funding was renewed up to what year?
2028.
2028.
And the more we get project, additional layer of funding could come. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, fantastic. Well, we wish you continued success, both for yourself, your organization, and our country, because we sure could use an edge. We've got to close that gap. So thank you for joining us, Sylvain and I, on the Food Professor podcast.
Merci beaucoup, Marc.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You ever been to Chuck E. Cheese? Did you ever take your kid? Was there a Chuck E. Cheese in places where you lived?
Yes.
So if you remember Chuck E. Cheese...
Unfortunately.
I like their pizza, I have to say.
What?
It was greasy and kind of like... If you remember, if anybody's been ever there, they had the automatronic band that would play every now and then up on the stage. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So they're phasing that out, and I wanted to to shed a tear over the demise, the breakup of the band, basically, because their rationale was, and I guess I agree, but then the rationale was like kids, they're putting up screens and kids, watch screens. I'm like, but I said to myself, and kids need more screens to watch.
So the band wanted to unionize? Is that what happened?
Actually, I think one of them slept with another one's girlfriend or something. So I think it was very complicated. I think the bear and the whatever was. Anyway.
Yikes.
Anyway,
X-rated podcast.
So that's it. So Chuck E. Cheese is moving out. Let's talk about Kraft. So Kraft Heinz wants to get out of the Oscar Mayer Wiener business.
Yes.
So is this, again, I'm kind of asking you these open type questions, but is this that category of goods? Because we know there's been a lot of more energy around high processed, ultra processed food, which when I think of Oscar Mayer, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
Do you think this is them shedding that, or do you think this is just an underperforming asset, doesn't fit in the portfolio?
I think it's just about performance. I think it's really, and frankly, right now, you're seeing more and more major companies, CPG companies, divesting. They're trying to focus on their core business a little bit more. You saw that with Pepsi, you saw that with Danone, you're seeing that now with Kraft Heinz. So there seems to be, many years ago it was all about diversity. It's about
diversifying your asset base,
diversifying your assets, expanding your portfolio. We're kind of seeing the reverse right now. They're just they're risk off kind of thing. That's kind of what I'm seeing. And frankly, I mean, you could see that there's some synergy that can be built between the sausage business and other components, but they're really focusing, I think, because, I mean, sausage is livestock, it's meat, and, it's more risk. And when you actually look at supply chains, you got the produce, you got the different ingredients. As soon as you go into animals, things get complicated. Things get volatile, much more volatile and less predictable. And so that's probably, and when you look at Kraft Heinz, there's some stuff that are really selling well, but there's a lot of animal stuff that may actually bring more risk.
Okay, last couple of things. I was just reading this study from the Wall Street Journal that the average number of retailers where food and beverage were purchased has gone up significantly. This echoes much of the research that you've been doing around how people shop. So get a load of this. This is U.S. data in 2019-2020. Consumers shopped 16.8 places. That's now gone up to 20.7 in 23-24. So deal seeking, innovation seeking. You've done a lot of research around this. Is that it feels like it echoes your research and your findings as well, right?
Absolutely. So not surprising at all. And I mean, basically, people are way more strategic about grocery shopping. And that's it's not a bad thing. I mean, we're at SIAL here. Of course, a lot of the focus is on food and products. I think, I mean, where these products are sold, how it gets there, I think is going to be the key.
Private label.
Private labels.
Big.
And I think, I mean, a lot of conferences are really about that, more so than just, different flavored bagels or something. You understand what I mean? It's just really where people are shopping, where they want to buy. I mean, Dollarama has done very well with food these days, and people are scratching their heads. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. Well, not really.
I mean, it is tricking the metrics up, because I think it is one of those things behind your research that finds if food costs are more, they seem to be spending less. But I think Dollarama doesn't roll up into the StatScan grocery numbers, so I think we're losing some of that data integrity. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm not surprised at all by these results.
Okay.
Yep.
Last, let's give a shout out to the Little Potato Company that opened up a new distribution plant. It's a $39.5 million facility in Alberta. 70% of this capacity used to export to the U.S. So congratulations to these guys. I love their product because that's a good clap.
Yeah.
I love their product because you know what I do? I boil them for 30 minutes, and then I squash them, smash them, and then I put them in my smoker for another 30 minutes. And then you get these crispy bites of smashed potatoes.
I got to try that.
Check out the Last Request Barbecue show, because I did an episode with that. Woo, woo.
Last Request Barbecue.
Woot.
You're a genius.
All right.
Making chips even tastier.
That's it. Making chips even tastier.
The next storm chip. That's SIAL.
There you go.
You need a kiosk.
I need my own kiosk. I'm going to make my own. Well, let's wrap that up. Let's leave it there for the rest of the show. Look, it's so fun to be in person and doing interviews. I mean, it's not always possible. I love this technology because you can, do interviews around the world, but it's a lot of fun being in person. We're kind of more ad hoc, and so we got 2 more great days to go in terms of interviews. So looking forward to that. And, of course, we'll be back next week. Next week, we have a cattle. Colleen is joining us for her monthly regular appearance.
Yes.
We did some research on barbecue season. What's hot? What's happening in barbecue? Proteins, all these different types of things. So
looking forward to that.
We'll have some research for the people. Exclusive proprietary research only for the Food Professor podcast. I'm Michael LeBlanc, media entrepreneur, consumer advisor, and a bunch of other stuff. And you are?
And I'm the Food Professor, Sylvain Charlebois, having the time of his life.
All right. Right on. All right. Well, safe travels, everybody. We're here for a bit, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Take care.